I need to record this video. I shouldn't say I need to. I'm in the mood to, so I would like to right now. However, I might have to redact some information. I don't know if I have to yet. It depends on another party that I mention, that I will mention, because I haven't done it yet. And I just need to double check if they're okay with me talking about it. So, story time about cannabis use. Beginnings of cannabis use, I guess, or pre-cannabis use, cannabis use? I don't know what to call it yet. So I've done story time before on my relationship with alcohol, and there was a lot of history there. There's not a lot of history here, and it's something that I'll probably cover in the conversation about my current cannabis use and what it does for me and everything else that I'd like to have that I've been putting off for a long time for one reason or another. I don't know. But yeah, history. So to touch upon substance use in general, I didn't start drinking till I was 19. There's way more details in that video that talks about alcohol use, or what did I call it? There's a story time about relationship with alcohol. There we go. So this is history of, I don't know what to call this. But anyway, I didn't start drinking until I was 19. I drank for about a year and a half, and then I stopped for a really long time. Like I stopped for like 11 years, not a drop, and then kind of revisited that for a couple of years, and then stopped pretty shortly after I started using cannabis. However, like a year and a half ago, which I'll get into in more detail in the conversation. Because all these videos are spread out in different categories, but that's what makes sense to me. So, around that same time, when I was 19, there are 3 different times that I had tried smoking weed. And so, yeah, there are 3 different times in that year-ish that I had tried. And there's another event that I'll talk about as well. So, again, just like drinking, I didn't really have an interest. There's a lot of fear, I guess, around drug use as well, or that specific type of drug use. That same fear wasn't there for alcohol and that drug. Although, yeah, the very first time that I ever, not the first time I tasted a beer, but the first time I drank with the intention of effect, is the same time that I smoked weed for the first time. My goal that night, I was under a lot of anxiety and a massive amount of stress, and I wanted to pass out. I wanted to just go to sleep. That's all that I wanted, because I wasn't sleeping. And I was just really distraught and in a lot of pain, emotional pain. And so, sorry, I'm fiddling with this brush here. So I drank half a 2.6 of vanilla Smirnoff in about 10 minutes. And while I was doing this, some folks that I was hanging out with, we were outside and drinking and whatever. I wasn't there for very long. But like, hey, try smoking some weed. And I was like, sure, screw it. Let's do that. Let's add that to the mix. I have no idea if it had any effect or not. I would say it didn't. I had the effects of being drunk for a while, and then I just puked it all up because I had alcohol poisoning, because I had drank so much I had no tolerance built up. I just drank so much in such a short amount of time at a high concentration and volume that my body was like, we don't want to keep this in. So I just vomited all that out probably after like a half hour. So that was the first time I smoked weed. Again, these 3 times I'm going to talk about are all within the same year to year and a half. So another time was with 2 friends, and they were hotboxing a vehicle. And I decided, sure, let's give it a shot. And nothing happened. No effect. Just nothing happened. Nothing happened there. Again, it was kind of like the circumstances were there, and I was just like, sure, like it could be fun. Maybe I'm in the mood. I got time. Um, Seemed just like I just took the opportunity because it was presented and didn't seem that impactful. It wasn't like the other night where there was like intention of like I need to just sleep and pass out and I don't care how that happens. And there wasn't a lot of fear around this time. I'm not sure why, but there just wasn't. So I tried it, and just nothing happened in that vehicle. Another time in that era, which I think was pretty close to this time I just talked about with hotboxing the vehicle with two friends and how I just like, okay, cool, nothing's happening. Another time, I had smoked with someone who was a really heavy drug user of all sorts of drugs. However, I believe I had drank a couple beers too, and I think I felt some of the effects of the drinking of the beers a little bit, but I don't think that I felt high at all. But also, I didn't know what I was looking for. I didn't know, even in retrospect, I can't say because it was so long ago. We're talking close to 20 years ago. Not quite, but close. A little less than that, just to be clear. That I can't recall of like, oh, you know what? In retrospect, I totally was high. Like, I don't really know. So, yeah, I don't recall feeling anything different than I had any other time. And I don't believe it really had an effect. And because of those 3 times, I decided there's no point in doing this anymore or trying it because it doesn't have an effect. I'm also recognizing I have a problem with alcohol right now, so why do it? It's just another thing that I could use too much, be irresponsible with, use as a negative coping mechanism. Just no need for it. So I didn't try it again. So that was again about 19-ish, maybe 20. And then I didn't try it again until I was about 30. And that was when I had gone to Saskatoon to visit. I don't know why I was there on my own, because I had a partner at the time that usually we went back to Saskatoon together. But in this circumstance, we did not, and I don't know why. But I went back to Saskatoon. I believe, I don't remember if this is it for sure, but I believe that's what happened. And I was hanging out with my sister, who had been smoking in high school and doing the weeds for a couple of years already, and we were hanging out at my mom's house, and no one was home except for the dog. And then she was just like, "Hey, do you want to go get high?" And I was like, "You know what? Sure." I just I knew the circumstances were there. Hadn't tried it for a long time. I was like, nothing's ever happened before, but sure, let's give it a shot. And so we went out back. There's like it used to be like a little playhouse, like a little tiny little house. I don't even know, what is it, like 2 meters long by like a meter wide. Like it's just this tiny little playhouse for a kid. And now it's just used as like storage or whatever. Maybe it was meant to be storage the whole time, but it looks like a little playhouse. You would stand in it, not super comfortably, but so we went in there and did a little weed. And I don't know why I'm being so awkward about it now. I think part of it is because I don't know if I'm going to have to take this information out, because I'm trying. I texted my sister and she hasn't responded yet. So, because I don't think this is news. I think this incident will be news to, hey, Mom. But it's not news to her that my sister has been smoking weed for years. It's also not news to my mom that I've been experimenting with cannabis the past year and a half or so. I shouldn't say experimenting. I've been documenting, I've been journal writing, I've been reflecting, I've been using different methods and feel very comfortable in continuing that usage in one degree or another. but that's neither here nor there for this video. So, yeah, I'm just being weird about it. So anyway, so we got high, and then we went back into the house, and very quickly I was like, oh, things are happening. I'm feeling something that I've never felt before. The other 3 times that I had tried years beforehand just didn't do anything for me. And now it is. Now things are happening, right? I remember that we were standing in the living room and we're looking down the hall, and Harley, this little doge of my mom's, was there, and insert a picture of Harley here, I guess. He was just sitting there, and I don't know what he was doing, but apparently it was really funny. And I think we stood there for like 15, 20, it felt like 15 or 20 minutes. We were just standing there laughing. And that was a lot of fun. And then I just never had the desire to do it again. It was just a complete one-off thing, and it was fun, but I didn't have a lot of education still. I mean, think about how much has changed with legislation, laws, education in the past 5 years around cannabis, let alone, this was 7, 8 years ago that this happened. And so since then, I have learned a lot about myself, about cannabis, about usage, about desired effects, about, health, things like that. But back then, I was like, that was fun. It was just a one-off thing, and I didn't have a desire to do it again, and I didn't until about 1.5 years ago. But that is kind of the history of my cannabis use. I think that there was a lot of fear based off of things like media and commercials. This is your brain on drugs, that kind of thing. The DARE program wasn't really in my high school at all, but I was aware of it. Concerned children's advertisers, commercials on TV. Some of you may have no idea what I'm talking about. I have no idea what my audience is here. But if you're a little younger than me, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. I still remember that white screen and the logo. There was like a black exclamation mark, I believe. Anyway, so upbringing in my religious upbringing too definitely had an effect on that. But even with drinking and stuff, like I believe so much of it for me was like, I don't want to do that because I don't want to not be in control of myself. I want to have full autonomy. I want to be aware. I don't want, like, there's so many things. But also the representatives that I had for weed usage and alcohol were so negative because I didn't have a model for someone intelligent, smart, who was drinking responsibly, using cannabis responsibly. Those weren't things that were discussed. Those weren't things that were shown in the media. So I thought, like, oh, you're just going to get high and sit there and do nothing and just like, oh, munchies, haha, you're going to laugh a lot. I don't know. It just didn't seem appealing to me for whatever reason. I was just so much more wanting to be in complete control. And in the conversation, I'll get to how that's changed and whatever. And a lot of it has to do with education, like I mentioned. Having more information and experience with people and that are discussing their experiences with drug use of different kinds. So it makes it a lot less scary when you have firsthand accounts and not propaganda. But that's kind of my history with cannabis use up until the past 1.5 years, wherein I was scared of it. I didn't really think about it much. It definitely wasn't something I wanted to be around. I didn't have friends that used. I was just like, oh shit, like that kid's like, that's bad news bears. That kid's doing the devil's cabbage, the laser lettuce. So I think that's pretty much all for the history. I tried getting high, couldn't get high. I eventually, how many years later, did get high, enjoyed it, still didn't have a desire to do more. And we'll pick this up in the conversation, which kind of talks about the last year and a half of my cannabis use and where I'm at right now.